Things up, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Hope everyone is well. Welcome to all our guests. I'm not sure if Faruq sent me the request to start speaking and start, or if he just sent me the request. But I think he's setting things up, mashallah, back end. But I hope everyone's doing well. Sam, Hussam, Birdman, Hashino, Arcadian. Nice to see you guys come back, mashallah. Faruq, I don't know if you're there, bro. But I think while Faruq sets up, we've got an interesting discussion today. Quite a lot's been happening back end on the UFO space past week. Even today, I noticed there was a drop by News Nation a few hours ago. Not sure if anyone's watched that. Specifically to do with religion and the phenomenon, which I thought was very interesting that they were focusing in on that angle. I have my thoughts in regards to that particular program. Maybe we could discuss it later on. I don't think it was a very good. They did a very good job of covering the subject holistically. It's predominantly from the perspective of the Vatican. I wouldn't even say from the perspective of Christianity, because we didn't really get or hear from a learned Christian on the show. Predominantly, it was commentators on specific areas of specialism, which weren't really to do with religion per se. But nevertheless, I thought it was an interesting attempt at the subject. But yeah, we've got an interest. Khalid's joined us. Assalamu alaikum, Khalid. Hope you're well, bro. So yeah, today's topic is magic, men, and UFOs, the hidden or a hidden connection. It'll be brilliant to get your guys' thoughts on it. Like always, like every week, we want to open this up for everyone. Get everyone's thoughts, get everyone chiming in, get everyone's perspectives on the topic and what their views are. There's a lot to discuss in regards to this particular topic. We're actually planning, just to let you guys know, we're planning our second episode of the Inner Sanctum podcast on this specific topic as well, because it is such an extensive topic, and we'll be drawing parallels between ancient magic, if you like, and New Age attempts of trying to contact beings or entities, or NHI as they're known. And seeing if there are any specific parallels to be drawn, if there are similarities between what happened in the past, what's happening today. So it's going to be an interesting show. But if you like, this is a part of our research for me and Faruq as well, to get your guys' perspectives and insights and thoughts on the subject. So we really want to hear from you guys tonight. So please send me a request, send us a request. Faruq, I don't know if you're on, bro, if you are able to speak. If you are, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, give me 1 minute. There we go. I finally got a co-host. The problem is because I'm on the IREP one and on my own personal one at the same time. It's kind of causing a little bit.
Yeah, I assumed, bro. That's why I just started. Sorry, I just jumped in, man.
I was in that. I was stuck, man. So, Jazakallah khair. Thank you, my brother. Do you mind just accepting the co-host invite I sent, and then I might drop the IREP group out and re-log in. And try and just log in as a listener rather than as a host, purely because I don't want this feedback loop.
We're not getting any feedback. Are you getting feedback on your side?
Yeah, it's only me that's getting feedback. I'm basically just hearing myself like a quarter of a second later, and it's doing my problem.
Got you. Okay, got you. Yeah. Okay, bro. You saw it whenever you're ready, bro, to jump on. Faruq, welcome, bro. Let me send you an invite as well. How do I do that? Invite to speak. Perfect. So anyone else? Joe, welcome. A few other Sarahs joined us. Birdman, welcome, guys. So, like I said, the topic is magic, men, and UFOs, and jinn, if you like. There seems to be a link between all of these different things, all these elements, and it'd be good to get the discussion started. So if anyone wants to chime in, Sam, I know you got the mic, bro, so if there's anything you want to kick us off with, anything specific, or Hussam, any of you guys want to jump in and say anything or share anything in regards to this topic, feel free to unmute yourself, and let's get the ball rolling.
All right, hi, assalamu alaikum, bismillah, hi everyone. Well, the idea of magic, when we start looking on the sources of magic from my perspective, I looked into some things, and since I come from Egypt and I looked into ancient Egypt, everyone, they believed that the human soul, let's say, or spirit, whatever, is made of three things: the ba, ka, akh. Akh is like the life, the soul in the afterlife. The ba is the human soul, and they used to represent it as with a bird with a human head that could leave the body and come back. And then the ka, and this is the important part, ka is the source of magic, which was a spiritual double that the person used to command using their psychic or mental abilities in order to move things without touching them, for example. And the ka also is the same thing, what we see as the kareen in the Arab culture, which is the doppelganger for everyone, where people actually, I believe this is the source of magic, because when I started looking into, when I was a teenager, I didn't know it's a new age stuff. I just was looking into meditation and shit. And then from Arab gurus, supposedly, they started speaking about it plainly, how to train your spiritual doppelganger into moving things and doing or giving you information. And then it's not exactly like how the Egyptians used to do. It's the same thing. And then when you look into UFO phenomena, when I asked that, and I looked into some experiencer subreddits, and I tried to ask a simple question: whenever you meet entities, let's say aliens or whatever, is it always the same entity, or are you standing in like a bus station in a busy London street where everyone's walking by, or is it always the same one that meets you? And almost 90% say the same one, but some of them had like, oh, I had the same entity, same mantis or same gray, but sometimes he used to invite his friends, which is from my perspective as a Muslim, is very, very normal thing, that it's known that some people who become in a certain state, we believe that they get extra or more kareens from the negative attachments, which doesn't have to be a negative, i.e., when people imagine Satan or a demonic thing, they imagine something evil, looking evil, red faces, and like rawr, rawr. But it's not like that. It's about the deception, and the beauty on how you can hold yourself to your standards without falling in the trap.
No, thank you, Sam. Go for it. Over to you, bro.
Yep, sweet. So, no, appreciate that little introduction there, brother Semi. MashaAllah. So, let's get into because magic in and of itself, different cultures have different explanations for it, but it all kind of links back to the same thing: a way of, or a communication between men and a spirit or another being. And that communication, it normally involves some sort of ritual or even a potion in some cases, whatever it might be. How does this link back to UFOs? What's this got to do with ufology? Well, this is what's important. I think if we look at the modern vernacular, as we've mentioned in the little brief there, the modern terminology, the modern words that we use words like psionics, psychic phenomena. We also use words like telepathy, as you mentioned, Sammy. Moving objects with people's mind.
Telekinesis, I think. That specific.
Yeah, sorry, go and say, bro.
I was saying that moving things with the mind, I think they refer to as telekinesis.
Yeah, telepathy. Excuse me, you're right. Telekinesis as well, and so on and so forth. These type of things are just modern words that wouldn't have been used in the past, but the same phenomena occurred. Some of the people today, from the disclosure efforts, especially in America, people like Luis Elizondo, who have claimed to, or at least hinted at having some sort of, let's say, phenomenal ability whereby he can materialize himself in other forms, as he claimed in his book. He said that he tormented and attacked a terrorist, according to his words, and he did so by materializing him and a group of other people. I believe, and someone can correct me here, I believe one of the other people was Hal Puthoff. They came together and they manifested through remote viewing to come in the form of an angelic form, as he described it, to torment a terrorist. This is what he said. Those are the words that Lou Elizondo said. If you were to take away modern terminology like, materialize and, remote view and so on and so forth, you would say that what they did was summon a demon. That's what you would describe it as, some sort of summoning of some sort of demon. Whatever it looks like is irrelevant. You can scare somebody, as they would say, or frighten somebody, even with something that you might describe as looking angelic, but very frightening. This is what I wanted to hone in on today. I wanted to discuss the parallels between what's going on in the disclosure effort today and the people that are involved in it, and cross-reference that with people who did or claimed similar things in the past, and what were they viewed as? What would people describe them as? These are, regardless of what people think, a lot of the time we have this view of what, someone who's good is. A good person is X, Y, Z, right? And, fighting for the truth in matters of, government, standing up for the people and trying to work on a disclosure effort. This is a good person, right? This is what people would say. But if you take what they do, these individuals who have made claims that religious fundamentalist Christians, also known as, Collins elites, have been thwarting efforts of disclosure for, decades, and have been a thorn in the side, or a nail in the side, if you want to call it that, of people who are trying to make scientific, discoveries through the research and development of the reverse engineering program, have been thwarted and held back by a religious fundamentalist Christian group known as the Collins elite. If we look at what these people are claiming, the likes of Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff, and other people who are self-claimed psychics, or, as you said, telekinesis, or, telepathics, people like, forgive me, brother, Bledsoe. People like Bledsoe who claim that this is some sort of, strange phenomenon that's occurring, that it's good, it's a positive thing, they're here to help us, they're giving us information about things that are yet to come to prepare us. And this is all social engineering. And we saw that in the past, that's how they viewed people who would receive information. Mediums, psychic mediums, were viewed as witches and wizards and warlocks. People who were socially engineering, people who were turned to help bring goodness into their life, or to make a thing happen for themselves. A person may go to a witch or a wizard and take money and whatever else they're told to take, a piece of hair, to bring me a cat, or to bring me a chicken, or whatever it might be. And if you bring me these things and bring me some money, right, I'll contact the spirits and I will, bring good into your life. I'll bring marriage to you. You want to marry that person? I'll bring that person to you. No problem. Bring me this, that, and the other. We do. That's what they were viewed at. And this is what these people do. Psychics, mediums. That's how we're going to contact the dead for you. And we're going to bring you closure, or we're going to bring positivity into your life. All you got to do is meditate. This is what I wanted to talk about today. If you guys want to chime in, anyone has anything to say, if you've got something that you've learned about this topic, anything you want to share or heard, or maybe somebody like a Lou Elizondo, or even one of the more recent whistleblowers, the bald guy who had a phenomenal moment in his helicopter. I forgot his name. What's his name?
Jake Barber.
That's it, Bob. Cheers, bro. You're the man with the names, bro.
Let me be honest, bro. Honestly, I'm the worst person with names, bro. I don't remember anyone's name. It takes me like 20 meetings, and it's not. It's just I've always been bad with names, but for some reason, these names stick, man. Maybe because you forget them more than me, so it encourages me to remember them more. Probably, I don't know.
Tabarakallah. That's I think that's what it is. But because I'm good at remembering faces and even like obscure information. I'll hear it once and I'll remember it forever. But a dude's name, bro, it's gone. It's gone. And there's people I work with every single day, and I call him dude because I don't know his name. I've worked for him for like 5 years. His name's Dude. So there we go. Anyway, that's how it is. That's how it is with me. So yeah, I hope we're sort of on the page now. What we want to discuss today. I think it's a really important topic because a lot of people who are interested in UFO topic don't really see the history the way that maybe somebody who studied religion sees it, because religion always gets a bad rap. It always gets a bad PR, if you like. Their relations with the public aren't very good because, I'll be honest, a lot of negativity has occurred. There has been some, particularly in the West, there has been some, let's say, practices that were implemented to discern who a witch was or who a magician was. And these things were just ridiculous. They were a local ignorant man, who had a position of religious authority, and he was just literally not going by the book of God, not following any of the processes that we have from a religious perspective. They were simply saying, if the witch drowns, she wasn't a witch, and if she floats, she's a witch. This is a ridiculous notion that doesn't belong in anywhere and shouldn't be lauded or applauded in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. However, to use that to completely disregard and to remove any dangers or any real thought about the reality of witches and what they're actually able to do and what they do and how they harm society, I think is ignorant, and honestly it's naive, and it can cause us a lot of problems. And we need to, as a collective, particularly in the UFO topic, we have to, as a collective, understand the dangers of what these people actually represent, their capabilities, not in a sense of what they're able to do, but what they're capable of trying to do. And, we don't want to look at these people as, let's say, positive people of light, as they like to describe themselves, trying to bring the light and bring uncover the darkness and so on and so forth. Rather, a lot of these people will do anything, absolutely anything, for a taste of the phenomena. And the phenomena knows this. Now, that's why we touched on it last week, but that's why a lot of people who have experiences can be led to do crazy things, sometimes ridiculous, even sometimes can be really funny, like, turn around, spin it, whatever it might be, something ridiculous or, nonsensical the phenomena will have them do. But sometimes it can become very sinister and evil, and they will do so in order to, have an experience. And we're going to discuss about some of those things. Sam, you jump in, bro.
Hi, thank you so much, Faruq. So I was just going to mention regarding the idea where Lou Elizondo sent someone or manifested. It's funny how they said it felt like an angel to the person who was tortured. Regardless, this is only from the perspective of Lou Elizondo. When you hear about it from the other side, from the other way around, the people who actually been in the in the prison said the other way around. They didn't say they felt like being tortured by an angel. They felt like someone is hitting them without seeing anything. However, regardless of both narratives, it's very known, even as I said it, the deception element about how an entity doesn't have to look evil, even from Western Christian perspective. Like when you said the calling elites, even in the Bible it said that the Satan can manifest as an angel of light. Even as a Muslim, I do not have to. But yes, then it is possible. It seems to be happening because from our view as Muslims, we believe that you cannot summon angels. But at the same time, people believe, as you see on the YouTube, how many of them saying channeling Archangel Gabriel or Archangel Michael. How many of them on YouTube? Countless. You think that Archangel Michael or Gabriel's have nothing to do and just channeling all these YouTubers just for fun's sake and just doing their bidding, like he's coming based on their request as if he is the one who serves them, not they serve God. That It doesn't make any much sense. At the same time, you see how many people meet the feminine entity. I see that countless times now on Reddit, and it's increasing. And one of them I saw today, actually, today in the morning, I saw one on Reddit where a woman said to someone that she had an unseen entity living inside her body, and she thought it's Jesus until he started to ask her to kill herself. If anyone goes on Reddit, subreddit called Experiencers, you'll find this today. And this is a known thing where people can communicate with the entity for a while, doing some bidding, like how Robert Bob Bigelow. Robert Bigelow said the same thing, almost like what Loy Elizondo did. He used to say, "I'll make requests, even I'm in a different country. They'll call the guys at the ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. I'll tell them, start taking pictures now, out of nowhere, in any place randomly, and the pictures will have orbs. However, he requested from remotely from somewhere far away, and we know that time or space and time, space specifically, doesn't matter a lot when you don't have a mass. That means it's an discarded or unseen, invisible or non-physical entity. That's people are dealing with something that they do not know. And I know someone from New Zealand who just played the Hal Patoff and these Robert Monroe gateway tapes, just thinking it's fun to do an astral projection. But unfortunately, she started to see entities all the time around her daughter. Whenever she's going to bed, they're always floating around. And now she cannot shake, like as if her eyes are always seeing these things all the time in her house. Surprisingly, she contacted the IREP and she got some instructions, I think from you, Farouk. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
She actually attested to me that these things worked out. Like, at least it's reduced to whatever is happening around. It makes sense. It makes sense that these things, unfortunately, and she says she regrets doing that. Like, they didn't know what they are doing is magic and evil or dealing with the entity. People thought to do magic, you will have only to have incense and start to say weird stuff and do animal sacrifices and or human. No, actually, this comes later. But the beginnings are actually easy. It's a slippery, easy slope that anyone can fall on, and it's like trying to leave the human experience. Well, we're here to live as humans. Anyway, I think this is enough rambling for me.
No, mashallah, you're absolutely right. I think talking about the dangers of doing these things is as important as talking about the the stories thereafter, if not more, because I think that human beings have been for so long disconnected from true reality, and they have become obsessed with scientific reality, if you like. And you're better off speaking about this, Imran. But just the way that which we approach life and existence is very, very science centric. So therefore, anything that occurs outside of the frame of scientific investigation doesn't really matter. Metaphysics isn't real. These things don't exist, and it presents problems. And people, I honestly think there's a great example in the story of Michael Masters. He was I believe he's an evolutionary biologist, and this man talks about his story that happened. I think it was a few years ago. It happened now, but he talked about it more openly about 6-7 months ago, and on the podcast that he was on, he actually said that he was suffering from ontological shock because his brain just simply wasn't prepared to have these phenomenal experiences. And that's one side of it, the reality check that you get when you realize that there's other things going on around us. Then there's the completely the other side of it where okay, my computer's frozen. I don't know if I cut off there. Okay, cool. So, and then there's the other side of it, whereby people like that young lady who wanted to experiment, to try some of these protocols, to reach out and try to connect. And Greer encourages it, as well as Project Unity, other sort of social media UFO personalities. They encourage people to go out and seek for themselves and reach out for themselves. It's all well and good for them because they have one little light in the sky and they become obsessed with it. But for other people like that young lady who are now suffering greatly and unable to sort of shake it off, they have the parasitic element that has been described as hitchhikers, that from people who've studied Skinwalker Ranch, they've come home, they've brought things home, their wives have seen things, their children have seen things, and I know personally that people who would attest to this sort of phenomena occurring, and that's not even from reaching out, that's just from being inquisitive and interested in a topic. You have to be very careful, and I think highlighting the dangers of magic, highlighting the dangers of these men, talking about, and I want you to talk a little bit about this, Imran, if you don't mind, that this whole wave of ufology in the early days, there was one huge wave that came directly after one of the fathers of the American rocket program, Jack Parsons, participated in a strange, disgusting ritual. And it brought about the UFO waves that we saw in the 1950s, if I'm correct in saying that. So could you expand on that, Brother Imran, briefly?
Yeah, definitely. But I think just to reiterate and emphasize the point where a lot of people are taking this very lightly these days, this whole make contact, engaging these protocols, it's going to be amazing. And it's unfortunately being indirectly encouraged by some academics as well. So Gary Nolan is a very good example of this. By simply suggesting or highlighting, maybe this is the case. I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest this, but or not enough evidence to suggest this in a definitive way. But there is some initial evidence which shows that people that are having contact with these entities or beings have certain parts of their brains which are more highly developed than other people. So it's almost, I don't know what we refer to it as that. There's almost like this intellectual type of eugenics that's taking place, where there's this indirect encouragement that's coming in, or this perception that's been created that intelligent people have contact with these beings. So, and everyone wants to be intelligent. So psychologically, it's almost like, yeah, okay, here's a Nobel nominated scientist who's phenomenal in the work that he does, and he is indeed. But he is highlighting that people that may have contact with these beings have more highly developed, or certain aspects of their brains are more highly developed, and they're generally more intelligent, etc. I want to be intelligent, so I want to make contact with these beings. So you can see how this indirectly would lead someone to, again, encourage someone to make contact with these beings. And we're seeing this from different aspects of society, this type of narrative that's been pushed. Greer is another example, encouraging CE5. All these beings are good and amazing. It's all fantastic. Go ahead, make contact. Anything bad is just the government that's doing all this stuff. It is very dangerous. And like you mentioned, bro, just thinking about or engaging in the study of this topic does bring about, and we know we've experienced this firsthand, and many others have too, brings about a type of presence or certain, how would you say it, bro? Experiences, right? You see, it's heavy. The topic itself is very, just studying it, let alone engaging in protocols and doing all this crazy stuff. And we've seen, like Sam mentioned, the sister lady that came through who was dabbling with some astral projection, I think tapes or something, and she ended up having this full-blown experience, which is not leaving her. It's affecting her family as well. And it's very dangerous. So, they say out of sight, out of mind, but it's also the other way around too. It's almost like, out of mind, I'm getting mixed up now, but the point is, people need to be careful, whatever you shift your attention towards, and many people have mentioned this, if you focus on the phenomenon, you think about this too much, it does, and within Islam as well, bro, we know that hence it's discouraged to delve into these topics too much, to talk about these things too much, to engage in the study of these things unnecessarily too much. It takes you down a rabbit hole, which is very dangerous and very dark. So it's discouraged from an Islamic perspective generally too. Obviously, we're approaching this from a purely study perspective, and we feel there's elements or aspects to this subject which can be enlightened from the perspective of Islam, and that's our perspective for doing this, or trying to bring this information to more people. But anyway, I'm rambling. Going back to the point, what was the question, Faruq, bro? You were asking. Sorry, man.
Yeah, it was about the Jack Parsons.
Yeah, so we were speaking about this the other day, bro. I mentioned we're going to be doing this on one of the next podcasts, this topic in more detail. And we discussed Parsons and Aleister Crowley being like the bridge, almost the nexus point, that pivot from where we see almost the wall between the classical ancient world, or ancient and classical magic, where magicians would engage with entities, invoke entities, and they had a certain way of seeing these things and understanding these things, that these were demonic and evil, or beings from other planes, spiritual beings. And then on the other side of the wall, you have all of the modern lingo, right? The techno-secular age, where now you have psionics and you have NHI, and you have all these terms and labels, but essentially the same thing, just repackaged. Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons seem to be that bridge. It's almost like those were the figures where the old world and the new world comes together and merges, or that shift or that transition takes place. And we know Parsons, one of the fathers of modern day rocketry, and this is a known fact, he was engaging in rituals, in particular the Babylon workings in the deserts of California. He was engaging in these rituals, and the intent was, or one of the objectives was for him and for Aleister Crowley to make contact with these beings. And I think Crowley was successful in making contact with one of these beings called Lam, who, interestingly enough, also looks like the classical grey, or big head, big eyes, small chin. It looks like an alien, essentially, a modern depiction of what an alien looks like. Parsons, was trying this type of stuff and engaging in this stuff. And there's a very interesting book, and I've made reference to this before. It's called The Final Events. It's written by Nick. I don't remember his surname, but Final Events by an author called Nick something. Redford, something like that, his second name. Phenomenal book. I really recommend everyone check it out. Redford, that's the one. Amazing book, because he covers his engagement with one of the original founders of the Collins Elite. And essentially what, in the first part, I haven't finished it, I'm still going through it. But what's highlighted is that the Collins Elite, one, came into existence because of the activities of Jack Parsons in the desert. And there was this assumption that what he was doing was what led to the original flap of, the original UFO flap in the 50s. They assumed this, they recognized this connection, and they even apparently interviewed Parsons and asked him, was there a link between this whole UFO flap and what he's been conducting or doing in the desert? I don't remember top of my head what his response was, but there's a very clear link that the Collins Elite made between...
It is also remarkable that when he was doing these things, he was very in contact with L. Ron Hubbard, the creator of Scientology, who was which is a very alien NHI UFO religion, and he was doing this in the desert with him. They were pals in the same cult.
100%.
Yeah, can I add something else also about Jack Parsons, which is so weird? The entity that he was contacting, one of them, his name is Belarion Armelos Al-Dajjal, which you can find it in Wikipedia. Why would this deceiver Arabic word would be inserted in the name of the NHI? That's so weird, right?
Yeah. Can I add something real quick, Imran, up here? And you know how Jack Parsons does? I remember reading this, and it said that he would time travel, right, or something like that. That he would in his dream he would time travel with this being called his last name was Dajjal or something, and that was really, really interesting, because all these times, they would go in the desert, perform all these rituals, which are being extremely normalized nowadays, as you guys have mentioned. So yeah, that's something I just wanted to add.
Yeah, so and this is why we say he's a bridge. Crowley and Parsons are a bridge if we really study this. They are doing these rituals They are trying to gain information from these entities and inspiration from these entities. And I think Parsons was inspired, especially the Dajjal figure or this being that he was contacting. They were giving him information, possibly, information on how to develop these rockets and so on and so forth. It's very evident from when you study him that he was engaging in magical rituals, which led with the desire to make contact with beings, these other beings, to access information from them. And we're seeing this now. If we look at fast forward, close to a couple of decades, we're seeing the same thing being done by psionics. We've been seeing the same things being done by CE5, by Bledsoe. Not that these people are intentionally doing this or they even know what they're doing in some cases, but essentially what they're engaging in are magical protocols. They probably don't even recognize the magical protocols to make contact with these beings. But instead, the only difference is that the labels and the terms have changed. We're using language now which is suited to a sort of secular age, a sort of techno-secular age. We're using different labels to describe and engage in the very same thing that magicians have been doing throughout history. We've got some hands up, Faruq, bro.
Yeah, just quickly before we go to you, Sammy, I just want to mention Diana Pasulka. She touched on this in her recent book, Encounters. And they call the insiders who are working on some of the most sensitive technologies, or even being just at the forefront of any sort of technological industry. They call it downloads. They recognize what's going on. They recognize that this information isn't coming from themselves. It's being fed to them from an outside entity, and they call it a download. Whereas, we would call it waswasa. We would describe it as whisperings of the devil, and they mix with these waswasa, one truthful thing and 100 lies. So this causes confusion as well, and this is one of the key things. This, let's say, whatever they're experiencing leads them one way. That's a dead end. But in that dead end, they'll find one thing good out of it. So it's worth it at the end because they are making some sort of progress.
Yeah, bro, do you want to just explain what waswasa is for everyone?
So waswasa is in Arabic, maybe one of the brothers will explain it a little bit better than I can, but essentially it's the retreating whisperer, is the qareen who comes to you, the companion. See, from in Islamic position, every human being has assigned to them what we call a qareen, a companion from the phenomena, from the jinn. Now, that companion, as far as we know, isn't with us 24/7. It's not around you at all times, but it is around you at some times, and it goes back and it reports about what you're doing. It'll report back to, they have their own jobs, their own life, and these qareen have a role to play in their world to report back on you. And they'll report on things that they cause you to do, errors that you make throughout the day, whether you commit sins and do evil things. It will go back and report to its boss and say, look, I managed to get him to do this and I get him to do that. And they generally just dare to torment you. But they don't witness everything in your life, but they witness a good portion of it. And that's why it's called the retreating whisper. He will come and he will make suggestions to you. Now, as part of that role, they have an influence, and they also give you inspiration. And those inspirations we've learned through the research we've done is that some of these inspirations come in the form of technological or scientific advancements. As such, we have some reports from around the 12th century whereby these particular creatures would speak to people directly, not just from a whispering way, but as a voice, as an audible voice, and they would hear the creature speak to them through a plant or through a bird or through another animal. And one of the things that was reported is that a plant would speak to the alchemist, and would tell the alchemist of the beneficial properties inside the plant, and then would explain processes of how to get to those beneficial properties in the plant. So how to, process that plant in a way as to get to separate these, different let's say ointments or whatever it might be, oils or however they're processing the plant. That was them. If we upscale it slightly and bring it to today, where we have people saying that we're being spoken to with it psychologically or psychically in the mind, and we're being led down a path within a scientific endeavour, and it's leading to results, as is claimed by the famous Tyler Durden in the book that Diana Pasulka wrote, the first sort of UFO book she wrote, American Cosmic. She mentions that Tim Taylor or Tyler Durden, whatever name you want to give him, he was part of a group that would come together and they would discuss and seek to create new technologies that were guided by a non-human intelligence. And he said that things like the mobile phone and other inventions have come from that room that he's part of. And some of the technology was through reverse engineering, and some of it was through guidance from the non-human intelligence. This is important to mention because these match with almost identically what we see as magicians, people who are affected by and troubled by non-human intelligence in the past, who did rituals and participated in evil acts in order to get this edge over the rest of their peers, in order to get the edge over. And by the way, this is not just limited to the scientific industry, but rather it also goes into the entertainment industry. We have many singers and rappers and people of that nature who have openly stated that they have been required to make sacrifices to animals in particular rooms reserved in their house to appease the spirits in order to have successful album sales. We could list multiple of people who've come forward and said these sort of things. We have blood rituals involved with music. We have, people accusing major megastars of being witches and warlocks. People like Beyonce have been accused many times of being a witch and being involved in human sacrifice and the likes, in order to stay at the top of their game, in order to retain the position they have within the entertainment industry. We have things similar in our shall we say stories of people who betrayed human beings in a similar way. In the 12th, 13th century, they did the exact same thing. I think that having this in our mind when we approach the UFO topic will only allow us to understand better that a lot of this is social engineering. I know there's a lot of people who are in the room at the moment who are listening. If you don't agree, or if you've got a different view or opinion, I don't mind hearing what you have to say. We've got a couple of hands up, so let's go to. I couldn't see who was first. Imran, did you see who it was?
I think it was Hussam, and then I think Sam had his hand up, but then it went down. And then Hashino, we have.
Yeah, we also had Arcadian had his hand up as well. So we'll go with Hussam first, and then we'll go. Sam, you can go at the end, bro, because you got a lot to say, bro. So we'll go to you at the end if you don't mind, bro. Go for you, Hussam.
Hi, Faruq. Hi, Imran. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So when we are talking, I need to comment on 2 points that you just mentioned, Faruq. For Beyonce, that some people accuse her for being a witch. Well, actually, she mentioned herself that she gets, when she goes on stage, another personality gets inside her, and she have its own name, and it's not her.
That's true.
She refers
in an interview, actually. Yeah.
She refers to this person as a completely different one. Even she says, people expect from me to do what she does, but I cannot even do it. When they meet me in the street, it's not her. They think that it's the same, but it's not me. So, in relation, if we go back to magic and UFOs and Jack Parsons, that's something I just noticed just only now. Since Jack Parsons is the person that people consider the father of space travel right now, subhanallah, that just reminded me of Surah Al-Rahman in Quran, verse 33. O company of jinn and mankind, if you're able to pass beyond the region of heavens and the earth, then pass. You will not pass except by authority. So going to the heavens or the skies, it seems like it required a collaboration between humans and jinn, which we can see it literally happening after Jack Parsons, which mentioned in Quran earlier before that. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, man. Perfect insight there. We go to you, Hashino. Go for it.
Yeah, so thank you very much for allowing me to speak. What I've seen is because of the current world ideology in terms of atheism and looking at the world through a purely atheistic scientific standpoint, it robs people of their natural fitrah to have some sort of spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because of that, what's happening is that this UFO, it marries two things, the spiritual aspect and the scientific aspect. So because of scientific interest in this topic, you get the UFO aspect, which is the spiritual aspect. And what I've realized is there are some religions, for example, Raelism and the Baha'i faith, that are, that are quite established. For example, Raelism is a sort of UFO religion. So what they're doing is they're trying to make people worship the shayateen. In essence, that's exactly what it is. Like you guys mentioned earlier, they package it up with all sorts of names and modern words to make it sound, new and authentic and, inquisitive and very interesting, next level technology, you can. But then at the essence of it, it goes back to directing your spiritual thirst to worship the shayateen, like Stephen Greer. I've just recently come across that he's part of the Baha'i religion. The CE5 protocols and all these little stuff, it's just literally, I can see it happening. It's just the worship of shaitan. But you just got to package it up, get a box, put a nice little bow on it, do all these meditation, you can summon a UFO, etc. And what happens is, once you open that door, it's very hard to shut it, because the shayateen and the jinn, they're always going to be attracted to you now. You've come forward, you made that contact. Now they're going to be attached to you. Now you're going to start to see more objects in the sky. You're going to become amazed, and you're going to see, oh my God, this is real. And, I've had a life-changing experience, and all sorts of weird, freakish, outlandish things start to happen. And then, that's my 2 cents. I mean, I just want to see if anyone knows more about the Baha'i and the Raelism sort of connection with the UFO ideology.
I do. Yep, you're up next, Arcadian. Go for it.
This is a weird but might be a dangerous suggestion, but can IREP have a community in a messaging app where we can discuss?
We have one on WhatsApp. I will put it in the comments, and you should be able to jump in, and you can join in the conversations that happen on it. It's an open WhatsApp, so anyone can jump in and get involved, no problem. So I'll put it in there, Arcadian, and you can share your ideas in there, bro.
Yes. Also, I have another question. Sorry to be selfish, but can these spiritual beings read our thoughts? They can obviously put thoughts in our brain, but can they read our thoughts?
There is a difference of opinion there from the scholars, but I think the majority do say that they have some sort of indication of the weaknesses of man. But to know the details of your thoughts, I don't think so, Akhi. But to the extent of what they understand, only Allah knows. But it's not as much as you might think. But there is a slight difference of opinion of exactly what they have the details of. But to know the inner thoughts of all things, no, they certainly don't. But they do sort of they can communicate on that sort of level of consciousness through wasf, say, in the mind. And yeah, but Allah knows best exactly that. If you go in the group, the WhatsApp group, we can expand a little bit more on that, and I'll share with you some of the sources that we have for why I say what I say. So no problem.
Jazakallah. Thank you.
Go for it, Sammy. You're up next, bro.
Well, thank you so much. I'll try not to take so long. Sorry if I do.
No. That's why I wanted you on today, bro.
No, I actually already touched on some of the points I was going to grab. So, Tim Taylor, it's said that he stole that. There's a video on the YouTube channel called Vetted. This channel is very good. I would recommend it. He said that Tim Taylor stole downloads from Chris Bledsoe and created a business out of it. And this is so weird that they both think they are communicating with angels, and angels would give revelations to them and make it susceptible to being stolen. That sounds shady from an entity perspective. I'll be honest with you. And since we say the tools just changed from old times to new times, there is nothing. We humans have evolved from in the industrial revolution to the technological evolution, and there is nothing prevents the entities on the other side, from my perspective, to develop technology and evolve, because they have their own lives, as you, Faruq, has mentioned. So sharing technologies with humans is something very expected, because when we think about the whole world that we live in, this universe, it contains of duality in everything. And the only other side of the coin, when we humans see ourselves as male and female, but the other side of a coin of human and what? Human and NHI, or human and jinn, so like a material and this material, or not physical entities. That completes the duality, but at the same time, the evolutionary process, even in our lifestyle, should also be going with each other the same way. But the problem happened when they contact each other. So L. Ron Hubbard, who was working with Jack Parsons, as you guys said, Jack Parsons was saying Armelius Dajjal. Armelius is the Jewish name for the Antichrist, by the way. I just found this today. And L. Ron Hubbard was believing that he was in contact with Hathor. So it's the same lady that Chris Bledsoe is dealing with. And I don't understand, like, how people cannot see that. Even when I spoke to Chris Bledsoe, he doesn't see the connection. So
yeah, I remember. I remember. I don't know if you do. I jumped in on that discussion with him.
Yeah.
And I presented to him a number of things, and again, the problem is their perception of events is very centric to themselves. So and as with many, they think themselves to be special because this isn't normal. So when abnormal things happen or phenomenal things happen, a lot of people interpret them as, "Oh, I'm special. I've been selected for a role. I have a role here. I have a job here to do." And they interpret whatever they're told within a positive light, because they themselves are positive. There's no way I'm going to be used in a negative thing. This is too amazing for that. And they often, the ego, gets in the way, and they tend to see themselves almost like a prophet-like figure. And that's how they interpret it, is because that's what they want it to be. Oftentimes, it's our own self-desire that, interprets the event. There's no way I'm going to do something bad here. It has to be, has to be a positive thing. And, I've got a role to play. And by the way, Bledsoe, change his name, change the year, and you can pretty much, guarantee that it's happened before to many people. As we were discussing earlier, there's people modern day from different parts of the world who are having very similar, if not identical, experiences to Chris Bledsoe, and they're interpreting it in the same way. And they're interpreting the event such that they have become somebody special. Bledsoe maybe is a little bit more humble But I think that's born out of the fact that he literally has nothing other than that piece of tissue saying that he visited the White House.
I'm going to move you to a very interesting point which Hashina was mentioning about the Baha'i faith. So I noticed something about the Baha'i faith, how it was created. First of all, it's been in the news recently that Stephen Greer has been related to the Baha'i World Center based in occupied Palestine and in Haifa. He was married there and he worked there. So I'm not sure if he actually follows the Baha'i faith, but this is a very possible thing. So the Baha'i faith started by the man who they call Baha'u'llah. This man was in a dungeon and was in a very terrible condition and was exiled for maybe a month without food or something. And then once he came out, that's the story in Wikipedia. Once he came out, he saw what he called the Maiden of Heaven. He saw a woman flying in the sky, and there is lights around her. And then she descended to him. She opened her chest and like made her chest naked to him. And then when she did this, the whole world was shining brightness, as she is the personification of the divine. That's his claim. And then he saw little women, like he called them little maiden angels, smaller than her, flying around, calling her holy names, and she has something written on her forehead in red. That sounds like the whoever was Christian or
sounds like the Shaitan, bro. This also mirrors Fatima's the visions of Fatima with the three young girls, who a woman comes down from the sky and
exactly.
Can we go to Imran? You've had your hand up there, bro. Let's go to you quickly, bro.
No, this is very interesting, man. I don't remember the original point I was going to make, but I think this is Sam. I think was speaking. This has touched upon a very interesting side topic, if you like. If you look at some of the origin stories of certain religions, even they are very interesting. So there's a very interesting book by Ninian Smart. It's called the Dimensions of Religion, the Dimensions of Religious Experience. He has a few books on this. And he really delves into the, religious experience, and especially the advent of certain religions, or if not all religions. There's originally or initially an experience that takes place with the founder of the religion. Now, obviously, this you can further go into now and dissect, and we can, really try to assess and see if we have some criteria to determine between a divine religion and a NHI inspired religion, if you like. There are ways to distinguish this. Faruq, we've discussed this. Maybe we can do this in another time, or maybe you don't want to touch upon it in a second. But I thought it was very interesting you mentioned that, because if you look at, for example, the origins of Buddhism and Buddha's enlightenment, I believe it was a period of 3 nights, and there's accounts of a being, an evil being, coming to him and trying to distract him and do all of these things, and then finally he has this enlightenment or this moment. You have the same thing in Sikhism as well, where the founder, Guru Nanak, would go and bathe at a river, and he was being pestered by this demonic entity, trying to distract him away from his meditations and trying to connect with God. And then when that failed and he wouldn't let those beings get their way, they literally abduct him, according to the narratives. He was taken away for several days. He disappears in the lake, and then he appears again after several days, and he comes back and with an account of being taken to a divine court, where he was, given a new way or a new method or a new, direction. So it's very interesting that there's always, in many of these faiths, you see that there is always, or in many cases, a demonic entity that's present just prior to the moment of enlightenment or revelation. And it's almost like, and you see the build-up. These beings or entities try different strategies. One fails, then they try a different one. That fails, then they try a third one. And the final strategy almost always seems to be, okay, well, here is a new way. This is divine now. This is something pure. This is something enlightening, as a last tactic. And you see that in the case of Bledsoe as well, where he gets to the point where he's just about to give up on these entities or these beings and say he's had enough. then the divine feminine appears to him. It takes on a different form now to encourage him or just to try to keep him hooked on. With Greer, Stephen Greer, if you see his story, I think he mentioned it in a recent podcast, and he says it. He was on a mountain somewhere meditating or something, and this being comes to him and gives him the CE5 protocol. But some people seem to be more easier to get. Like Greer's always had this positive thing about them, and they're all good, and so it's easier. Whitley Strieber is another example. He seems to be into this type of punishment that he receives at the hands of these beings. So they continue to appear to him in that way. Those that get fed up with that want to move away, like in this case of Bledsoe, they change form. And this is very interesting. You see these parallels and these sort of commonalities between these cases. And considering what we know about the jinn, that they could take on different forms and they deceive and they trick people, and there's this trickster element, Jim Simivan, they're tricksters, as he calls them. It just, all the pieces seem to fall into place, and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. I want to add to that as well. This isn't like this is very common amongst people who have experiences, is the delusion that comes with it, the delusions of grandeur. Most, if not all, of the people who suffer from it without proper guidance, without proper understanding of the reality of this life and God, who God is, they fall into those categories, like Greer. Very, very delusional in regard to what the phenomena actually is. And this is definitely deliberate. This is absolutely deliberate. Creating this knowledge gap is something which the phenomena does time and time again, because it separates the, if you like, quote unquote, elites from the public. This secrecy is literally a hallmark of the phenomena, the devils, and how they deal with their selected victims. Yeah, and that's what these people are, they're victims, which is the complete and utter opposite to what prophethood is. Prophethood is never based on secrecy. There is no secrecy in prophethood, that there's special information that only an elite few have access to. Instead, it's the opposite. It brings clarity and clarification. And that's one of you mentioned, Imran, what are the differences between an experience of, say, a prophet, someone who's been selected by God to bring a message to mankind, and what's the difference between that and what's happening with, say, somebody like Bledsoe. And that is, the lack of, there's no secrets. The message is to be delivered clear and concise. And that is mentioned in the Quran, that the message that the prophet was given was to be delivered in open so that everybody knew. And he took a witness right at the end when he had delivered the message that God sent him with, that it's been delivered. And he said everything he was told to say. The other aspect of it is that there's always a warning from prophethood. The prophets always warned the human being, the creation of mankind, of a day to come where they will be judged for what they used to do. So there will be no secrets on the day of judgment. Everything that people did, all of the crimes, all of the secrecy, all of the lies, all of the cheating, for those who are not forgiven, it will be made clear to everybody. So if you're a sinner, but you ask God to forgive you, and your sins haven't harmed anyone except your own self, you may be forgiven for that. But if you do sins and they've harmed people, you've lied to people, you've cheated, and you think you get away with it, there is no getting away with it. And that's the opposite to what the victims of these messengers, these false messengers, are. They tend to think that they're special, and love is God, and kindness and being nice, and there is no judgment. There is no accountability for your actions. Instead, it's the opposite. It's, give in to your base desires, do as you wish, and don't control mankind, which is the opposite to what the prophets came with. You need to be controlled because you're going to be held accountable for what you used to do. So there has to be rules, there has to be laws, and there has to be justice. Again, there's no justice in what the phenomena teaches, because you can essentially do whatever you like, and there's no accountability. Another thing as well is there's a reward and punishment for the final judgment. All of the prophets, whether you're talking about Noah, whether you're talking about Abraham, Moses, Jesus, peace and blessing be upon them all, Muhammad, they all said the same thing. They said that there will be a day where you will be told to either enter hellfire or paradise. And this is for every human being. Anyone who hears my words right now, you will, according to what the Prophet said, be told one day to either enter hellfire or paradise. And that is an absolute truth that they mentioned. That you never hear this from the people who are affected by the phenomena. They never give this criteria. They never mention this ultimatum. At the end of your existence, you're going to be brought to account. Yeah? And lastly, always God sent the messengers from the human beings. Why is it that these messengers are not human? They're hidden, they're secret, and they create little cults and little groups of people together that sit and talk about their own interpretation, their own understanding of events, and it's not to be shared with everyone else. Rather, it's the opposite. It's to be kept secret and hidden, and there's going to be a time soon, and there'll be a time soon. You can see in the 50s, quite a few of the UFO cults that came out there. There was quite a few who believed that there was a message that was going to come soon. Don't worry, we're going to come soon. We're going to come collect you soon. Some of the more famous cults, like Heaven's Gate cult, they genuinely believed that there was going to be a ship that was going to come collect them if they drank the poison. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that was because of the effect of the phenomena. So I hope I made it a little bit clear. And the last and probably the most important thing is at the center of all of the message of the prophets is the oneness of God. That God is in control. He is the ultimate power, the supreme being. He is outside of time. So all of time is a creation of God, which does not apply to him. And therefore, this is the supreme creator and sustainer of all things. The atoms exist because of the will of this being. The molecules that arise from the atoms exist because of this being. The life within me that's speaking to you now, and your ears that are able to hear all of the events that are occurring right now, both from a physics and vibrational sound perspective, as well as the intent behind my words and the communication and language. This all belongs to the one who's above all else. This is the creator and the sustainer of the heavens and earth that we're talking about. This is central to the message of the prophets. It always has been. Yeah, that this supreme being is all powerful, and you need to be aware that his punishment is severe and his mercy is is unknown. How powerful and majestic the mercy of God truly is. This is never at the center of what these beings push. It's always something like a flying being in the sky, a few lights flashing around. There's never nothing as majestic and as amazing as that. You have the collecting of an egg-shaped craft causing a really emotional moment for Jake Barber. But there's no central message or anything to go along with that. There's no warning. It was just, he described it as love. And a lot of people say God is love. This is a concept that is not correct. Yeah, because love is an emotion, not a thing. So, I hopefully, I don't know if I went too far there. Did I push people out? I don't know. But yeah, hopefully, just a little bit of clarity of the difference between the two messages. The message of the people of magic, the message of the people of the phenomena is completely different and totally different to the message of the prophets like, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Noah, peace be upon them all. So, and I think that's an important thing to realize when we're investigating what's going on here, that this complete and utter secret is a hallmark of the devil, because they operate in secrecy. The shayateen, this entity, the phenomena, it operates in secrecy. We don't see them because we can't see them, because they don't show themselves to us. And the ones they do deliberately show themselves to or build a relationship with are the controlling elites. And they see themselves as above the rest of mankind. In fact, just to quickly go back to someone we mentioned earlier, Tim Taylor, he made a hierarchy. And his understanding of this hierarchy was there was God, the supreme being, then his angels, and he himself believed he was in contact with one of the angels he called the Hammer. I mean, you open up a comic book, you're going to see something similar, right? And then he said underneath the angels was higher beings. And then below them were a portion or faction of the intelligence community who have kind of created a knowledge separation from the rest of mankind. They have access to and knowledge of certain information that they've kept secret from the rest of us. Kept secret. Why? Probably because, to create a barrier of control. You know, if we're just getting mobile phones and computers and technology with apps and so on and so forth as we do now, these things are being drip fed to us. It's because they have something that's above all else, better than that. You know, maybe they have a type of quantum communication that's just completely different to what we're using today. Right now, we're logged into an internet service provider that's boosting this out all over the world. There's probably a slight delay between my voice and when a lot of you are hearing it on different parts of the planet, but there's not that much of a delay. But when you're talking about something at a quantum level, you know, we're talking about communication that's absolutely instantaneous across any distance that you like. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's a huge separation between technologies of the public and the technologies and understanding of the intelligence community. When you factor that in, we are at an absolute, what's the word? You know, we're in complete and utter vulnerability to this breakaway, if you like, civilization. And these are the magicians. And it always has been. Pharaoh, just to borrow from a biblical and Quranic narrative, Pharaoh, the reason he had such powerful control over the rest of his people was because he built a knowledge gap on magic tricks. And these tricks, the magicians used to go around and they would do amazing looking feats. And these would scare people. These were really powerful magicians. And they would do things that would scare the people. And I'd say, in the name of Pharaoh, in the name of Pharaoh. And the people used to get afraid because they didn't have the relative knowledge and understanding of how magic worked in order to discern that this is just a trick. And the magicians themselves, the one who had that knowledge, they were the ones who are up there with Pharaoh. So when he, you know, offered them money to take on Moses and what was happening with Musa and the phenomena of prophethood, he called the best magicians and they said, look, what are we going to get if we defeat him? You know, we want to be rewarded. Because they understood we're doing your bidding, we're keeping the public in control. Yeah. And this is kind of, I think, the relationship that we're seeing amongst this faction of the intelligence community. They know the trick, they know what's going on, they understand the science or whatever it might be, the functionality of these craft and these beings. And they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to keep it quiet, we're going to keep this thing hidden, we're going to do our part. What do you want us to do? Well, abductions, whatever the phenomenon might be, you allow us to do that, and we're going to keep you in this level of control over the rest of mankind. We're talking about control that is irrelevant. Money becomes irrelevant when you get to that level. It's not about money. It's about control and it's about power. And it's about also experimentation. What if I said to you, you know, let's see if we can get the human beings to start eating bugs. And they all start laughing. They're in a room and they're all laughing. They go, yeah, come on. And then before you know it, it's part of the law that you can't eat meat anymore, that you have to now chow down on a load of bugs and spiders or whatever it might be. Just a thought, you know, this is maybe perhaps the level that we're at now, where they're just seeing what they can get away with and get humans to do. Am I going on a bit, guys? Sorry. Anyone got their hand up? Who we got there?
Request from good. I can't approve it on my side. Can you approve it, bro? From Good Morning UFO.
What's that say again?
Yeah, can you hear me, guys?
Oh, sorry, Good Morning. I didn't see you were there. Yeah, jump it. It's just got you as a listener, not as a speaker on my one. So I think I've got some glitch going on. Welcome, Good Morning. How are you?
Good. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Fantastic. I got these earbuds. I just wanted to test them out. Nothing, I just want to jump on, talk with some UFO folk about UFOs. You know, that's kind of like the best part about this whole phenomenon. It's all the research that all of us are doing, in my own opinion. So I think that's what's cool, is the buzz. The buzz. How are you guys doing?
I'm great. I had a bit of a long. I went to a lovely place today, though, where we are. There's a border between England and Wales, and it's absolutely beautiful landscapes. It's got, like, you know, rivers and meadows, rolling meadows. You know, the classic postcard type thing. So I was out there today. Beautiful, sunny, hot day as well. So I had a lovely day, but it was a long day. It was a lot of driving. So, but yeah, I've had a great day.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and you know, now you're on Twitter Spaces talking about. I'm just so happy for this community. I mean, Twitter's pretty toxic, but you know, when you find good people, you can have good fun here.
Yeah, you can. Sorry, I ran off to grab a bottle of water because I waffled on so long that my mouth went dry. So I had to go grab a bottle of water.
I mean, I can rattle on. Do you want me to rattle on? Oh, I can.
This might, I wouldn't mind because this is my favourite topic. And you know, because I'm a van driver, I spend a lot of the day like alone in the van. Yeah. And I get to listen to a lot of things, but then I also get to like self ponder. So if someone was to sit with me and I couldn't see them, they'd think I was a maniac because I talk to myself. Yeah. I get to think and ponder and say things and say, no, that don't sound quite right, or no, that's not right, and kind of work out, you know, how I would explain something or explain to somebody this particular topic of ours. So, I waffle on a lot. So, yeah, you're more than welcome to jump in and have a little.
Perfect. I might shake some things up. No, I'm just kidding. But I guess so it's interesting how everything kind of shook out, right? So to just kind of give some baseline information for maybe people who are aware, maybe those who are not, about a week and a half ago, there was a scientific UAP hearing that was happening in Congress. Representative Anna Luna Paluna was there. I just call her that for fun. Tim Burchett was there, Avi Loeb, Lou Elizondo. You had Eric Davis. You had Burleson, and you had a couple others. Well, you had, what's his name, Gary Nolan, and I think maybe he wasn't there. I don't know. But there was this UAP hearing, and Lou Elizondo showed a photo that at first glance looks like a UFO rolling through, like the biggest UFO you've ever seen. And lo and behold, the internet debunked it in about 20 minutes flat. And the next thing you know, everybody was able to confidently say that they were irrigation circles. And everybody was okay with the fool me once. That happened about a year ago when Lou Elizondo released a picture of another mothership that he claimed, and very easily debunked by the internet. It was a chandelier, and it was the reflection of the chandelier in the window. So here we have the number one disclosure guy taking these, and the problem with him showing those ears.
Is it just me, or has Good Morning gone quiet?
Yeah, I think it went quiet on my side too.
Oh wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go for it. We got to the point where you said, if fool me once type thing, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me type thing. So go on, carry on from there.
Yeah, you guys can still hear me?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. Yeah, I have these earbuds. I got to probably redo them. But yeah, basically, so you had Burleson and all these people there, and Lou Elizondo showed these irrigation circles, and the internet totally debunked it. Like, sure, if he was just with a group of people, any group of people in the UFO community, it would not have been a big deal. But he was using time in Washington, D.C. with 3 elected officials to discuss this information. And so the fact that he showed a photo that to a lot of people is obviously irrigation circles, I think that stirred up Luna and Burchett, because they actually left halfway through the meeting. They worked really hard to get this whole thing together, and Burchett and Luna left, and I just feel like that's not talked about enough. Even if it was just a polite exit, they did not stay for the whole thing, and I think there's 2 reasons why. One, yeah, I don't think they debunked the Lou Elizondo thing, but I think Eric Davis got on and started talking about Nordics and reptilians, and that was kind of when they beelined out of there. Okay, and now they were supposed to have another congressional UAP something or another today, and it got canceled. It's not here. It's nowhere. They're not going to do it. And so, it's also really, really sad, because Lou Elizondo now appears to have not any authority. And it's sad because he did have a power behind him that was great, gaining political traction. But him showing another image of something he says is a mothership, or it could be a mothership, and now he's backtracking, saying it's like what it would be if you had no, he showed like a random photo. And so now we have the congressional thing today that was going to happen. It totally got canceled because of Lou Elizondo's photo.
So, a quick question: what do you think? Like, he's getting those pictures from somewhere, and it's obviously a sort of, it's coming from an area that he trusts, because he's done it twice now, yeah, and he's probably done it more times in the background, and we just haven't. Nobody's filmed it or shared it, or shared a picture of what he shared with us, so for us to debunk it, right? Do you think it's either A, that he is literally a misinformation agent, that he himself is the one who's bringing these pictures forward from his own archive and sort of shooting himself in the foot, or do you think that there's somebody out there who's playing this on, doing this to him, sharing the pictures and then saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I thought this was a legit picture. It was in this file and I thought it was real," or third option, do you think this is a pantomime? It's like, "Oh, they're behind you," and we're like, "It's a fake." And then, the people on the stage, i.e. your Lunas and so on and so forth, are deliberately going, "Huh? That's fake." And the whole thing is just a contrived pantomime type thing for us to feel like there was some sort of effort made to disclose this. But in the end, it didn't happen because there was too much disinformation. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I think it's obvious. Yeah, most definitely a disinformation issue. When it comes to Lou Elizondo, we always have to take into consideration that he is a counterintelligence agent. And considering the internations in 30 minutes, I kind of got the feeling that they're trying to push him out as being the leader of the narrative. I think I don't know, how do we put this? The cabal, I guess, the CIA, the secret elite group of people that is messing with everything, killing JFK and doing all these awful things. I think that group of people knows that we figured out Lou Elizondo, like the grassroots UFO community sees right through it. Everybody knows that he's pushing this stuff. So for him to put out the irrigation circles, that's just them attempting to hand the torch to a new person. So I think they're grooming somebody that they can bring about to be the next person of disclosure. And it's counterintelligence, so you can't really say who it could be, who it could not be. In my own opinion, when somebody's a CIA agent like John Ramirez and he comes out and he starts saying that, there's definitely going to be mass panic in 2026, which he did. He definitely said that. And I had the clip and I posted it. And he tries to pin it on Angeli. He tries to pin it on other people, but he's starting things, right? When 2-3 years ago, John Ramirez is saying, "Oh yeah, there's going to be panic in 2025, 2026, because he was going on all of our podcasts. That's what they always do too. They go on all the podcasts. And it's really, 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 really easy, I think, to see through who's doing real stuff and who's just trying to get you to be distracted from it all, 100%.
Yeah.
Because they're nice people.
By the way, I want to go on the record and say I was never a fan of Ramirez, even from the beginning. I watched, I think, the first 5 minutes of that interview that he did with Project Unity, which is another person that you could, talk about. I think he's kind of gone through so many, let's say, stages of understanding. It's hard to really know where his mind is. But he brought him on. I watched about 5 minutes of Ramirez and I was like, dude, this guy's either he's desperate for attention, he was an insider, but he weren't working on anything remotely interesting, but he just wants to have his 5 minutes of fame, or he's a disinformation person. I just didn't trust a single thing he said. It weren't like a Grush or somebody else where I immediately felt there was some sort of trustworthiness to what he was saying. I wouldn't say completely, but definitely some of the information seemed to, coincide with historical research. But where do you see ufology going now? Because it's right now, I'd say there's it's in a position where easily somebody could just swoop in and run with this thing. The right individual, the right charismatic person swoops in, takes over, and it's like let's say, for argument's sake, a Jay Stratton. Because we know through the grapevine, I'd say, I won't say for certainty, but Stratton had an issue with what Lou was saying. Do you think that maybe some of this this, the elbows out and pushing him away is because Stratton and that sort of side of things want to get rid of Lou? Do you think there's some sort of personal thing about this behind this?
I think Stratton's involved in all of whatever's going on. I think Stratton's like just as guilty as Lou Elizondo, actually.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks like that. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and so when it comes to Stratton, I just don't trust it. I think the new era of ufology is being done with this BS. I think people are over it. Like, I'm trying to get to this spot in the middle of the desert. It's 2 hours from Albuquerque, and it trended on Twitter. It trended on YouTube, on all these big channels about 8 months ago, and it looks like a flying saucer from Google Maps, right? So it hit all the trends. Yeah. And we all clicked it. We all liked it. We all retweeted it. But I'm going to get out there, and it'll just be a water tower, right? And I'm going to make a video about it because clickbait, engagement farming, all of this stuff is clouding the internet, and the internet works on extremes. So when people like Eric Davis come up and he's like, yeah, the Nordics and this at the congressional hearing, he's taken the show. A ton of people had a bunch of topics that they could put on their show right after that. So I hope it's not somebody who comes in. Like, I hope that the new era of ufology is that we're not falling for BS. And if that means we have to take steps back, or like it was way before 2020, I think that's great. Because at least before 2020, when all of this circus started going down, at least real researchers and real people were actually invested in it. And they were okay with being made fun of. And they were okay with being like dorks and pushed to the side like that. Pre-2020 ufologists, damn, they were good. They knew no one would ever think they're cool. They knew that they wouldn't get any clout for studying UFOs. They went to UFO conferences filled with men who were like 50, 60, all with gray hairs. That is not the demographic that you see anymore. No. And it's a good thing. So I think I definitely think UFO is done with the bullshit. And I don't encourage anyone to be listening to anybody who has a background at the government, who's going to spin tales of Nordics, who's going to spin tales of all this out there stuff. Like, no, like if they're, I don't trust any of it. It just seems ridiculous. And, to say that like Lou Elizondo hasn't been compensated for the work that he's done doing this. And you also have to backtrack. When did Lou Elizondo hit the scene? He hit the scene with To the Stars Academy. What was going on with To the Stars Academy? Well, it was run by billionaire Christopher Mellon. So you have the Mellons that hired him. And it was at this time that Lou Elizondo, because I follow this very closely, back in 2020, he was going on every show. Every show. Well, he didn't come on mine. I asked multiple times and it was a no. He also was asked multiple times by Brent and Blake Cousins from Third Phase of Moon, and they told me. By the way, I asked him to come. By the way, I asked all of them, and I was invited onto somebody's show, and then they cancelled on me, and that was it. I spoke to many people. I've been maybe in the Twitter side of things for as long as you, but I used to go under a different name, and I used to approach everybody, and I've been talking about my particular research for a while. None of them engaged with me, and there was only one lady, and I totally forgot her name, but she was really nice, and she had me on her show, and it was a wonderful discussion, but that was it. And she was like just like a community person, not one of the big names. The big podcast, if you like. I think one good thing did come out of the sort of the new wave of ufology, and I'd say that it did kind of shake off some of the charlatans that had existed in the shadows and existed purely because it was hard. You had the very sincere ufology or amateur ufologists who just wanted to have new information coming out. I remember years and years ago, 15 years ago, you would be lucky if you got a story every 2 years, like something coming out. It was, and it would be like, oh, that was a huge bit of news. And that nowadays it's like if a day goes by
you're feeling like it's dry out there, and you're sort of kicking stones, whatever. So
Yeah.
But yeah. I reflect exactly what you're saying. I think what would be good is if the community did come together, and that we started being a little bit more organized with, what we know and what we don't know for sure. Like to start dealing in certainties. So we certainly know this, and we certainly know that that's not true. Does that make sense? And that way we can start to build a sort of an anti-picture, a negative and a positive, and then that area that remains is the area that still needs to be investigated. But I do like where we're going in some respects. But I don't like the hyper reactionary way of ufology, in that when, like you said, it's so easy to manipulate with the online the online platform, because you can have like hundreds of people liking something that's nonsense, and they're not people, they're bots, but they're there to literally push that agenda and to send us down on a wild goose chase, and to once again create an up and down moment where everyone's excited, and then the floor's pulled out from it, and it kind of just to take the interest away from the topic once again. Like today, as you mentioned, the cancelling of the next UAP effort has been cancelled because Lou Elizondo shared a false picture, and it's another like let down moment, and a lot of people are going to lose interest. And when you, like I said, when you go back to 10, 15, 20 years ago, when you would get one story a year or one story every 2 years, like people don't know what patience is in this game anymore. You got to, like, you get an old magazine, an old UFO magazine from the 90s. I've got quite a few of them. You read through, and it's recycled stories from the 70s. That's all you had, and it was cool to read them again. And it's like a new piece of information that somebody thinks might have heard somewhere from somebody's uncle who was passing away. That was ridiculous, but that's all you had to go on. Sorry, I'm off.
No, I just want to say real quick. Yeah, I totally. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. Okay, now I can't hear you.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, okay, now I can hear you.
Like, I love what you're saying, because it's so absolutely true. Like, the people who are just joining ufology now have no idea what a slow news cycle is. Like we'll get bored when something doesn't happen maybe for 2 or 3 days. But these days, you can guarantee that something's going to happen in ufology at least every 2 days. And so that's really interesting that you say that too. And it's not like, it's so crazy. Yeah, because I just remember, like, you were doing the same stories over and over again. I remember as like the internet's gotten bigger, like that's how I was able to come to my own conclusion that Billy Meyer was faking all of his sightings. Sorry to those of you who disagree. I hope you don't take it too emotionally, but
you gotta be careful. He's got some radical followers. Good. You gotta be careful.
No, I don't have to be careful. This is the time of no BS, bloke. I know. I was just joking too, but sometimes people think but like, I do think this is the age of no BS. It's the age of saying things where you're like, you know what? I think John Ramirez might work for the CIA and be a disinformation agent. People shouldn't be crucified, which I feel like I kind of have been for saying that. Like, people shouldn't be crucified for a lot of this stuff, and they just continually just crucify people over it, to be honest. And so, as time goes on, things are getting better in the ufology world. Things are good. I just can't wait to see what happens next. I love it, and it's kind of nice because time's gone on by enough that, like, a lot of the people that got sucked into this 2020 sort of swoop that got everybody really, really, really excited in 2020, they've all kind of died out. Their podcast has stopped. They've stopped. Like, a lot of people have just run out of gas because they've been so disappointed. And so I'm kind of excited because it's like fresh. It's like a fresh new energy where, like, I know Michael Horn thinks that, Billy Meyer, he's the Michael Horn's the Billy Meyer expert, right? And it's just not true. And I'm sorry to be that person. I don't mind being that person, and I'll take the hate, because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm trying to cover my StreamYard fees. I'm trying to just, make art and create content that makes me happy and hang out with my online UFO friends, and that's it. Like, I love doing it, and I have since I was a young girl. And like, I think back, and like, I mean, my 6th grade research paper was like about Nostradamus, and like, I don't know, it's just always been, I've always been into the esoteric stuff. Yeah, but I think the more less BS there is in this field, the better it's going to be. And when people call it out, and instead of just like this whole believer trove of people, like, look at the research, look at the information that's being given to you, like, look at the evidence. There's a lot of evidence that Billy Meyer faked the whole thing. And if you want that information, feel free to DM me. I will send it to you. I too believe that all crop circles could have been made by aliens. They are not. If you would like that information, I can send that to you too. My DMs are always open. But crop circle season is not run by extraterrestrials. It's run by a group of artists who call themselves the Croppers.
Yeah, I will say they're quite popular here in the UK. We do get the odd crop circle, especially in Wiltshire, places like that, where you do have the large rolling hills of wheat and barley and that growing. But I'm not that interested, to be honest, in the crop circle phenomena. Just circling back briefly to the what you said about Billy Myers and people like that. I think this is I always forget his name. I think his name might have been Ryan, but the guy who faked the alien videos, he used to show the picture of the alien head sort of sticking around the corner. I don't know if you remember him. Years ago, he made these VHS tapes, and he said he was being visited. I think people like him and people like Billy Myers may have had one or two experiences, and the desperation for them to continue, as with a lot of people who have been affected by the phenomena, is such that they end up fabricating them to stay relevant. I think another person who had similar things is Uri Geller. He's managed to stay relevant for so long, but I think he maybe had 1-2 experiences early on, and he's just hankered and held on to that and kept it going just through relevancy. But maybe he didn't stoop as low as a Billy Meyer or somebody like that to completely invent pictures, but he definitely invented information. He definitely got caught out live on TV multiple times coming up with nonsense. And this, from my research historically as well, I would say that this is a byproduct of the phenomena. There were people who, particularly in the Victorian times, they would do strange feats, and they would use the spirits. They would be mediums, right? And they would use the spirits to do these strange feats. And then one day they would just be completely abandoned on stage by the spirit and just look absolutely ridiculous. There was a number of cases like that where they would have specific information about people, and then when push came to shove, when they were really under pressure to perform, the spirit guide just wouldn't show up. They could be completely left there humiliated. And this seems to be a trait of the phenomenon, the trickster aspect of it. And then there's the other side, like we mentioned, the Billy Myers and that, who are so desperate to have relevancy and to stay in as if they're still in contact with these things, that they make up entire stories of visiting dinosaurs and all sorts of nonsense. And they take these odd pictures to, I don't know, it's a psychological issue that comes a lot with people who have experiences. They can't separate truth from reality, or they don't want to. They want to stay on the edge of tomorrow, if you like. So therefore they live in this area that just doesn't exist. It's just sad, isn't it, really? That's why I like your classic old school people. Like, I would say this, I don't know if you would agree with me, but Richard Dolan, really classic old school historian type bloke who just narrates the story as it comes, and doesn't. I'd say he's. You would think someone like him would be very susceptible to getting swept up into things, but he doesn't. He kind of just sticks to what he knows, and he talks about what he likes, and he doesn't really get caught up as much as other people do. Very classical, very happy to hear new information, and deal with it slowly over time. That sort of way and approach I do admire and respect, especially from him, because I think with the knowledge he has, he could have easily made himself into something he wasn't.
It's really cool that you bring up Richard Dolan, because I have all these little adventures, and I managed to have this adventure where I was helping promote this online conference, and it was Richard Dolan's conference, and it was just really cool because he had invited like some podcasts to help with running like the chat or whatever on his virtual thing, and I was invited, and it was really, really, really cool. And he said something to me backstage with 5 other podcasters. One of them was Vinny from Disclosure Team, and he said, "You know what? There's no trophy in ufology." And I just thought that was such a good thing to tell, like, unknown, like, or known, or on their way to be known, sort of like researchers and content creators, because so much of the time people's egos get so caught up in this topic when they're creating content and the Twitter and all the things and all the attention. And then, like, and so I just thought that was really cool because he's right. There really is no trophy in ufology. There isn't like $1 million, you know, waiting for you somewhere. Like, you know, you gotta go out to make money. You gotta go out there and make a film. You gotta go out there and make content that's gonna make the big bucks. You know, it's not gonna happen just because you research and you look for some papers associated with, you know, like, he was right. There is no trophy in ufology. And it's like, he told me that, and I felt free. It was like this freeing moment for me. And I was like, that was so cool for me on my little journey to have him say that. And I was like,
I'm glad you shared that, because that is a really important little nugget. And it's something which our group, IREP, we discuss these things a lot. In fact, all of us, none of us get paid for what we do. Like, when we work on these little projects and when we're doing our research, we've been working in the shadows, if you like, not in a negative way, but like in the background for a number of years. None of us get paid. There's no money in it. We just do it for the passion of the project. And I know that there's, you know, some people listening now who are part of the project. You know what we talk about. There's nothing in this except just to share what we know. And obviously our angle is a little bit different to many ufologists, because we come from an area that really hasn't been explored from a ufologist perspective, purely because you would never think to look there. It's like the rock that you would never turn over. And the Arabs in particular, you know, across the Middle East, there's so many stories almost identical to the ones that we talk about from, you know, the 1970s and the 1980s, of people that it happened to, you know, the Arabs in their country, and it's written in their stories and in their news, and we just don't hear about them because, you know, we don't speak their language. We don't have, you know, their news doesn't make it to us. It's normally the other way around. Our stuff makes it to them. So it's a fascinating area to hopefully bring to light through to the ufologists out there, and it just enriches you know, the research. I want to talk about one other researcher. I know we're not meant to be on this topic, guys, so forgive me, yeah, but I like this one, which is, and I always talk about him, which is Leonard Stringfield. Leonard Stringfield is a prime example of someone who pretty much dedicated his life to ufology. And he spent his whole career like working right at probably the time where most of the cover up, most of the the counterintelligence happened, and he was right there at the forefront. And you know, he did a really good job. And at the end of it, he literally got nothing, and he never got to the bottom of what he was researching, according to his own view. And he just presented what he collected. I know some people have a lot to say about, especially the end of his life and things that the information that he collected, and that he had counterintelligence individuals, you know, establish relationships with him, and so on and so forth. But just to use him as an example, that often a topic like this is very niche. It's very, how can I put it? Like, you have to have some level of passion to be able to continue in this, because it is disheartening. You do get a lot of counterintelligence officials who come in and try to take over, or, you know, completely foo-foo, or constant, you know, what's the word we use when, you know, like a Stephen Greenstreet, who, you know, just, I forgot what do we call them?
Debunker?
Yeah, debunker. That's it. Yeah, debunker. We have a lot of and we always have, by the way, a lot of debunkers. People coming in. I don't know if you remember Serpo Forum back in the day. Good morning. Do you remember that?
It rings a bell, but it rings a
It
bell.
was just called Serpo.org, I think, if I remember correctly. It then became like this whole thing about Project Serpo. Yeah, but it was a forum initially, and you do see, like, sometimes I'll be scrolling through Twitter and there'll be people digging up things from back then and putting it out there, like, as truth, and everybody knew it was like nonsense. Everyone knew it was made up, but yeah, it's just sometimes fascinating to see. They're like, this is probably a disinformation guy who's been around for a long time, and he's just bringing new stuff up to kind of like, sway the views. It is interesting. This is such a hilarious topic, actually. When you think about it, it's quite old now, and you just see the same, circuit getting pulled on people. It's quite funny, but I got to say, I do enjoy it very much. And, again, going back to the topic we're meant to be talking about, bringing to the ufologists and bringing to the passionate people out there new information is really why we do this. We want to share what we know, and hopefully it will trigger something. Someone out there will hear this or hear that and put a few things together, and there'll be something new come up that's legitimate. That's the goal anyway. So waffled on a bit too much there anyway. Imran, I saw your hand come up a few times, bro. I don't know.
I think we're good, bro. So I think good morning's been taken off. Oh, they're back on now. I think Sam was requesting again as well because it was glitching. So there has been glitching today, bro. I think Rebirth also had his hand up at a point. Not sure if he wants to come in.
I did, man. I got to step out from her for a second, man. I'll be back, man. I'll raise it back up when I come back.
Yeah, come back, bro. Sorry, man. I didn't see anyone's hand come up. So yeah,
it's all good, bro. I was enjoying what I was listening to, man. So ain't no big deal. I'll put it right back up if I need to.
Sweet. So going back to what we were discussing tonight, we kind of I don't think you were here for it. Good morning, but we were just discussing generally like how the psionic assets, as they describe themselves, people who remote viewers and so on and so forth, how they almost identically match with the magicians of old and the things that they get up to and the experiences they have. And we were just talking about that connection with ufology and how it, how it's ironic that, they present themselves as vanguards of truth and honesty. When in reality, how they were viewed before was the complete opposite. These were deceptive individuals who, were out to socially engineer mankind on behalf of, an unseen entity. Very, niche little thing to talk about tonight. But yeah. Does anyone want to jump in and share anything they've come across this week? We've been on for about 2 hours now. I don't mind carrying on, guys. Yeah.
No, so I did want to ask. Good mornings on as well. It'd be good to get a take on it because I saw she's shared some posts on Twitter as well. The Colombian sphere. What's your take on that? Is that another psyop? Or is it just to muddy the waters? Because I think the same guys are behind it. That were behind that Mexican hearing, if I'm not mistaken, with those mummies. It'll be good to get your guys' thoughts on that because I just came across that today. I haven't looked into it much.
Yes, so Jaime follows me. I've DM'd a little bit with Jaime, and he's also works very closely with my friends from Third Phase of Moon. Third Phase of Moon pretty much got that information, and they did a video on it 9 days ago or so. And Jaime is an interesting one. I would put him, and I love Bloke, while you're saying, like, you have to have a good sense of humor and you have to be willing to get disappointed in this field. And like something about the old school ufologists is I would put him into like the Linda Moulton Howe category. And I love Jaime. I've met Jaime. I have a photo with Jaime. I love Jaime. Like the beginning of YouTube when UFOs were there, but Jaime is a polarizing person for a lot of different reasons. he came, and so what I want to say about Linda and him is they kind of have the method and the strategy of, oh my God, somebody just told me about the reptilian Nordics. I'm going to go tell somebody, let's get this out, right? Which I love, because there's that urgency so that there's no like disinformation agent coming or anything. And then the bodies that came out at the Mexican hearing that, yes, Jaime Maussan was behind. It's interesting with those bodies because there's actually more like 8 of those bodies. And the official documentation from the hearing is incredibly interesting as well, because it's signed by 7 or 8 PhDs, people who are anthropologists, people who study bones, people who are medical professionals, looked at it and said, this is definitely an organism. This is definitely a living entity. I can't say if it's alien or not. That's basically what they said, but it is a living entity. And so who knows what's going on with that. However, the research on Out of the Skeleton, which Stephen Greer took out about 20 years ago or something, the research on that is pretty conclusive that like it was an 8-year-old girl, and that took 20 years. An 8-year-old girl was set up several genetic abnormalities stacked on top of each other. She's like an anomaly, but she looks like a 6-inch alien. So that came out with Stephen Greer. And the point of that is that with the bodies, it's going to take us years and years to get to that point to figure out if any of those bodies are alien or extraterrestrial. But what we've seen in the past, in the last 2 decades, is we were given Out of the Skeleton like 20 years ago or something. And now it's been proven that she is a human girl. That with Jaime and it's called the Boga sphere, right? I think that's what it's called. I did a show on it. I don't know why I'm forgetting what it's called, but the Boga sphere. And I mean, it's very, very unbelievable, And the good thing about Jaime is he gets the information and he gets it out, right? But that sphere is one that also needs to be studied. In the other component that people don't think about sometimes is the cultural perspective that different cultures have on UFOs. There's a pretty cool space that happens sometimes here in the morning with some Japanese UFO friends I have, which is cool. They're super nice. Some of them know English, so we kind of speak like broken Japanese, broken English. Then it's pretty cool. And they were talking to me about how it's like not a good topic over there. Like, you don't talk about it. Like, but you'll go somewhere like Brazil, they've already done their UAP hearing and they released all sorts of wild on that. All sorts of stuff. The things that they did at the Brazilian UAP and the things that they released. So the cultural aspect of extraterrestrials, I think, is more embraced in some different cultures. And so I think that might be part of it, but I don't know. Like, they got to test it. They got to figure it out. They got to crack it open. I'm always looking for physical evidence. I am a volunteer at David Marler's National UFO Historical Records Center here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he's always willing, like, he's the curator, right? And it's his decision as to what enters the collection and what does not. But, like, if anybody had physical evidence that I could present to David Marler to catalog into the collection, it's always open, but it would have to be his go-ahead. So, like, for me, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I highly urge people to hand that off to the National UFO Historical Records Center. And the reason I say that organization is I can guarantee you there is no government entity running it. It is David Marler started collecting files in his garage for 25 years. He acquired a facility on a school campus in Rio Rancho, which is right next to Albuquerque. It's pretty much a suburb. And he's not being run by anybody. He doesn't have a handler. So, you have the National Archives, great, UAP National Archives. Do not send your artifact to the government, please. But, like, if anybody has crop circle straws that, like, they can collect and they want it to be studied for radiation, I would love to talk with Marla. Like, and if anybody wants, like, if somebody has an implant, I know somebody, if you don't want it taken out of your body, I interviewed a man recently who does the RF scans on the implants to pull it out. He was on Project Unity as well. And that's very scary. And so when it comes to the Boogosphere, it's cool. It's very cool, and I love Jaime, and I want to research it more. So thanks for asking. What do you think about it?
Well, the sphere, to be honest, I don't get that excited with the more physical artifacts. I'll tell you why. I'll present it like this. If you was a I say this a lot, yeah, but I'm going to use it again because it's an easy analogy. If you was a white blood cell, it would be very hard for you to discern anything about the physical world that we live in. So it'd be, I think, how do I say this? You know, with the physical stuff, with the metals and so on and so forth, I definitely believe that they're real. But I think often the way in which that they're monitored coming into this planet, and let's say the systems that we have today are advanced enough that they know what's where it's landing. So unless it's archaeological, I don't know enough about this particular sphere, right, to know if it was an archaeological find or something like that. Unless it's along them lines, I wouldn't say skeptical. I'm just not that interested, because it's very easy for someone to make a circular ball and then to just say, yeah, this was, in my garden, or I found it in the woods. I was taking the dog came running back with it, something along them lines. In regards to I like the idea of collecting the straw, though, from the, from the crop circles. So if there's one that happens around this way, I wouldn't mind grabbing a couple of samples and sending them over to you guys. That's not a problem. It's about getting the hot information when it comes through. So if you ever get a hot tip that comes through for Britain, because we tend to have quite a lot of crop circles, I think, compared to other places. If you do, then certainly. Did I just? Sorry, I just muted everybody. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. So if you get a hot tip, I'll go there and grab a sample and send it over to you, and you can have a look. There are some locations, I'll say, in Britain where there are some suspected, shall we say, tailings from a UAP event, a dripping one. The famous egg-shaped / oval-shaped craft that drip liquid metal onto the ground. There is an area of interest, but it's locating it after, say, 25 years. Going up there and trying to locate that metal is proving difficult. So if you know anybody who has that device that Pasulka and Tim Taylor took and found that metal after all those years, 50, 60 years, if you know someone who's got that device, send it this way, because I'll take them to a very specific location. We might be able to find some metal. So yeah, I'll say that. But regard to the actual device that Imran talked about, that circle, the recent sphere, I'm not sure, especially with that particular picture and things like that on it. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think. It seems a bit too good to be true, in my opinion. But like I said, it don't interest me that much, because it is just so easy to fake something like that, and it's it doesn't really give much away. That picture, what I saw of it, it kind of looked like what you'd see on a PCB board. So it kind of seemed a little contrived to me, a little bit lazy. If it's a fake, it's not a good fake. Yeah.
Someone's got a hand up, Faruq. Daniel.
I can't see, bro. I'm going to have to rely upon you, bro, because everything keeps glitching out. And I accidentally muted everyone, so apologies to that as well.
It's been very glitchy today, like on my end. I can't approve anyone. Elfstar.
I'm going to blame the phenomena, bro. He's meddling with the systems today, man.
You never know, bro.
Okay, can you hear me now? I just want to make a commentary on the Boogosphere. I call it the Boogosphere.
Yeah, go for it, Daniel.
Okay. Normally, a genuine off-world sphere would be bio-nanotech, a bio-nanotech droid that usually is for scanning and research, and it's like it has a semi-consciousness, and it's organic and inorganic, which means that it can connect with psionics, connect to it, and they're also able to change size and shape. Where this one that they've captured, supposedly, it appears to be a fixed shape and it's got a rim around it. Most of them are all like seamless. It's like a complete seamless ball, and which can open up into sort of like, that looks like an eyeball, which looks like an iris, like an eyeball staring at you, kind of thing, with the lenses and the land scanning lasers and things that come out of it, and the lights that come out of it. Also, holograms come out of it as well. But this one I saw, the first giveaway was the art where it looks like it was engraved by hand.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it just looked a little contrived to me. It was trying to be something, if you get what I mean. Like you mentioned, let's say whatever pictures I've seen of orbs, and I've seen pictures of orbs, and I would go as far to say that, there's people I know have seen them directly with their own eyes, and they've never seemed to have any artifact to them whatsoever, except that they're a clear, not clear, but a silver circular ball. Nothing else to them. Yeah, go on, Daniel.
That's all I wanted to say. You haven't seen has anybody seen your photos where they've opened up and look like eyeballs?
No, I tell you what I did see. There's a video from East London, which is not far from where I am, and there was. I wouldn't say it looked like an orb. It was an invisible orb, if you like, and it did look like a blinking eye. The way it was, the artifact of the light that was emitting when it would, if you had an invisible set of eyelids, that when the eyelids were closed, you couldn't see anything. So it's like a cloak, right?
So yeah,
and then when the eyelid opened,
it's quite.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it's quite possible. They also have cloaking technology as well, and they also have a plasma layer that envelops the metal ball for foster rapid travel and perhaps going into space.
Yeah, this is all very fascinating. The thing with the orbs as well, there is some indication that there is at least a replicated technology or something that looks similar to it that maybe human beings have, which also presents a bit of an issue because, discerning between the two without being able to get your hands on it, it's going to be quite difficult. So, God knows best on that one. But I will reserve judgment, I think. And like I've just mentioned, it doesn't excite me that much, especially like you said, when it looks like it's been carved and engraved on it.
Yes, that was.
I'll wait for someone.
Yeah.
And I'll wait for someone's.
Yeah, and also what is the giveaway is the sort of like interface thing at the bottom, like it's like a charging. It's just say like a charging port thing that it's on the bottom. When you got on the bottom of a walkie-talkie, you've got those copper connectors. It seems to have that at the bottom. And normally and a genuine off-world one it has none of that. It's wirelessly charges. It gets its energy from the sun as well. So
fascinating. Yeah, maybe I should pay a bit more attention to these sort of things.
Okay, so can I drop down to listener now?
Yeah, sure, as you like, Daniel.
Okay.
Thanks for your input.
Appreciate
it. And hopefully, we kind of do these every Friday at 9 p.m. UK time, BST. So it'll be a pleasure to have you back next week.
Okay.
Go on, Imran. You jump up next.
Well, I was going to say maybe we've come up, we've just crossed 2 hours, so maybe it's a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, bro. So what I'll say is I really appreciate everyone who jumped on and contributed tonight. Particularly Sammy, Hussein, Rebirth. It would have been a pleasure to have you up, bro. I've got fishing early in the morning. My son wants me to take him fishing, so I'm going to take my boy Saturday morning, and then tomorrow afternoon I've got some other chores to do that the missus will give me. So I'm going to retire early to bed tonight, and early being 11 o'clock at night here UK time. So I'm spent. Appreciate all your time, everyone, tonight. And Aaron, dang, man, I really wanted to talk to you, bro. I just seen you at the bottom there. And everybody else, I'll just quickly go through. BCAT, Sam, Dust Bunny, is that Dust Bunny? Sacha, B Phil, for real. Yeah, Saf9, Ahmed, Raf, Asylum, Daniel, appreciate, XN Itikiagyo, I can't read that, sorry. Victoria, Stevie, see, nice simple names. Stan, Dan, Khalid, mashallah, Khalid, congratulations, bro. Joe, Cookie, Tariq, Sammy, Hossam, Rebirth, Imran, and IREP. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully there was some sort of benefit that you took from it. And next week we will be doing another show from 9 p.m. UK time. It'd be a pleasure to have you all back. And anything you want to share or any particular topic, just jump in and say. Anyone else want to say anything? I think we're all done then. Yeah, so I appreciate your time, everyone. I'm going to end the space now. Thank you very, very much, and have a good weekend. Enjoy yourself, guys, and we will catch up too. Peace be upon all of you who follow the right guidance. Take care of you all. Be safe.